Does Shravan know how to get up here? Okay. Are we set to go? You don't know how to play cartels, right? You can play. Maybe she has some cartels here. Let's see. Do you also have cartels? You have mridanga, you have harmonium. You misplaced them. Okay. Yeah, you got everything else. You know what? I have back at the temple. I have extra, so maybe I can give you an extra pair of cartels. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Gopi Jana Balabha Girivara Dhari 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 Brajajanaranjana Brajajanaran Jasodhanandana Brajajanaranjana Jasodhan Jamuna Tira Vanachadi Jamuna Tira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hadi Gopi Jana Balabha Girivara Dhari Gopi Jana Balabha Girivara Dhari Jasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Jasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Jamunatira Vanachadi Jamuna Tira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hadi Madhava Kunjabi Hadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hadi Madhava Kunjabi Hadi Jayom Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Gaur Premanandi. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. They can sit together. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. Before we begin, or before we resume discussion on Brahma's prayers, just one follow-up reference. If you remember from yesterday evening, we were discussing, there were 3 reference questions, and one of those reference questions that I shared was, what happened with the Shakti weapon that Indra gave to Karna when he requested, okay, I'll give you the celestial armor from my body, but you in turn please give me your Shakti weapon. Remember that? Did you hear? No. So what we heard was that The Shakti weapon was used when fighting Katotkacha. And then during that discussion, as I was reading it, I remarked, and Sri Rupa was nodding her head, like she was feeling the same thing. What? Katotkacha had to sacrifice his life for Arjuna. And why did Krishna arrange it that way? Because he could have arranged it some other way or some other way or some other way. Doesn't sound like, why did he do that? So Preeti Menon heard the class, and she referred me to a discussion on Mahabharata, or personalities from Mahabharata, given by Govinda Das, disciple of Radhanath Maharaj, nice brahmachari speaker, who explained, among other things, in the whole almost 2-hour class, that Katotkacha, on the one hand, he was very devoted to the Pandavas, and on the other hand, he was the son of a Rakshasi, Hidimbi, and he had Rakshasa powers, and he used those Rakshasa, he had the capacity to use those Rakshasa powers not in service to Krishna, but in opposition to Dharma, in opposition to the Vedas, in opposition to protection of cows. He was by spirit and by power a Rakshasa, although the son of Bhima, and very devoted to the Pandavas. So Krishna wanted two things. He wanted him to go back to Godhead, which is his destination, because he was engaged in service under Krishna's direction, in the presence of Krishna, for the protection of Arjuna. He wanted him to go back to Godhead, but he also wanted his adharmic capacity to not survive the Kurukshetra battle. So it's not the same, but there's some overlap with Krishna's having the resident of Dwarka, the Yadu dynasty, eliminated by the fratricidal war. Part of it, there was different reasons, but one of those reasons was, if they survived and future generations of the Yadu dynasty over the course of Kali Yuga became degraded or deteriorated in their character, there would be very difficult forces on Earth to deal with. So he wanted Earth to be relieved of those forces. They were very powerful. So there was self-destruction. Not the same, but something similar. So his destination was back to Godhead, but his life was sacrificed for a different reason, for an additional reason, because he was an opposer of Dharma by his Rakshasa character. Not just that he was born in a Rakshasa, because Prahlad was born in a demoniac family, but he had some spirit like that. So that's an explanation given. I don't know all this history. So if somebody wants to know some details, I can't. It's just, this is what Govinda explains. So now, continuing with Brahma's prayers, and as I did for the morning class, a little reminder, this section of Brahma's prayers is dealing with Sambandha Gyan, the relationship between Krishna and his energy of Maya, Yoga Maya and Mahamaya, and how do we understand that? What's the mystery, or the truths about that mystery? Krishna and his energy. Okay? There's several verses on that topic. The translation to 10.14.18 reads, Have you not shown me today that both you yourself and everything within this creation are manifestations of your inconceivable potency? First you appeared alone. Then you manifested yourself as all of the Vrindavan calves and cowherd boys, your friends. Next, you appeared as an equal number of four-handed Vishnu forms who were worshipped by all living beings, including me. So he saw himself worshipping each one of those forms of Vishnu, the lots of Brahmas. And after that, you appeared as an equal number of complete universes. Finally, you have now returned to your unlimited form as the Supreme Absolute Truth, one without a second. So here's Sanatana Goswami's commentary. Paraphrasing, he's quoting, "If everything is illusory, then my existence here or there, in here, like in the moment, or what he saw there, this in the morning, is all illusory. If everything is illusory, then I'm illusory. And that all the things that you showed, they were also illusory. Though existing within the universe, you and your devotees are real, and I have directly experienced it now," unquote. Continuing the topic of Maya, Brahma speaks with pride. Like he's understood some things by Krishna's kindness, and now he's delineating. "Did you not show me today the Maya of the material world, different from you, seen with great variety, and existing within this world, which is like a dream or fantasy? Yes, you did. How was this? You were first alone. Then you were with the cowherd boys and calves. That was not false. What was you was all unlimited. Thus the boys and calves, though limited by differentiation, were unlimited." Each no, they weren't carbon copies of one another. They had their individual traits and characteristics, and which may be perceived as or philosophized as limiting something or someone. Therefore, if they're this, they're not that. They're not unlimited. But they were unlimited. That's his realization. Thus, the boys and calves, though limited by differentiation, were unlimited. Though they were of great variety, they were one. Advayam. Everything was ultimately you. Brahma Shishyate. Then he quotes a verse going back to chapter 13. This is chapter 14. Chapter 13, verse 54 reads, "The forms," this is what Brahma saw, "the forms all had eternal unlimited forms, full of knowledge and bliss, which were one form. Their great joy could not even be touched by Atmagyanis." Oh, they're Satchitananda. All the forms. That was it for text 18. Put commentaries. Here's text 19. And he's going on to another topic. He's going on to the Purusha avatars. So there were several verses speaking of the Vishnu forms, Mahavishnu, Garbhadaksha Vishnu, Shiradaksha Vishnu. Then he transitioned to the energies of Krishna. Now it's those in charge of the modes of nature, Guna avatars. Here's the translation. To persons ignorant of your actual transcendental position, you appear as part of the material world, manifesting yourself by the expansion of your inconceivable energy. Thus, for the creation of the universe, you appear as me, Brahma. For its maintenance, you appear as yourself, Vishnu. And for its annihilation, you appear as Lord Trinetra, Lord Shiva. And the BBT purport reads, although the impersonal Mayavadi philosophers think that the demigods are illusory, Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and Lord Vishnu are stated here to be expansions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus are real. Indeed, they are the extraordinarily powerful controllers of the universe. The ultimate truth is a supreme and beautiful person, and thus throughout the creation of God, we will always find the personal touch. And we're going to read, it's not long, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary. And as you listen, please listen with the ears that what he's doing is he's profiling the mindset of a Mayavad scholar. He's not supporting it. He's just saying ignorant people, some people think like this. And then the contrast. Not understanding anything about your spiritual universe, the materialists think that you are simply material. Maya, Maya. According to the persons who think themselves learned, but are ignorant of the path of bhakti, tvat padavim, you, Atma, spread yourself in matter, anantama, anat mani. You spread yourself in matter by your own will. And although without form, you take a form in matter. Mayavad doctrine. For creation, you become Brahma. For maintenance, Vidhane, you become Vishnu, Tvam. And for destruction, you become Shiva, Trinetraha. Though you are without form, Mayavadis say, you take a form in matter as Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. Thus, the form of Narayana, situated in the water of Maya, and all the avatar forms are all composed of Maya. The transitory calves and boys and four-handed forms of Vishnu are all Maya. This is the conception of the ignorant. So I decided to not go on reading too many things because time has been taken by so many questions, but this is an important topic. Brahma's position, we're in the Brahma Sampradaya, Brahma's position on Krishna's transcendental position specific to the devatas, the controlling demigods. Now, and he is dismissing the Mayavad doctrine right in this verse. So he's not like drilling it thoroughly, but the statements are very clear. There's the transcendental position of Krishna, which he's understanding, and that is the transcendental position of Krishna. He's the source of everything. We're going to discuss it a little bit more philosophically tomorrow morning. So prepare yourselves for tomorrow morning. But the absolute truth, back to the very first verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Satyam Param Dhimahi. Dhimahi, it means meditation. The word Dhimahi immediately the mind should, those who know the Vedas, the Dhimahi word means Gayatri mantra. Gayatri mantra is Dhimahi, meditation upon Satyam Param, the absolute truth. Gayatri mantra is meditation upon that which is the source of everything. And to understand the source of everything, similarly, is the beginning point and middle point and end point of Vedanta Sutra. The Vedanta Sutra is to understand that from which everything comes. That's the absolute truth. Whatever is that from which everything comes, that's the absolute truth. And then the declaration of the Bhagavatam is that Krishna is that absolute truth. So Brahma is reconfirming, you are the absolute truth. And there are persons that don't, they're scholars, but they don't understand. They're speculative scholars that don't understand the absolute truth. And they have a view on things. And their view on things, including Krishna's energy, and those who are the controllers of Krishna's energy, is that the absolute truth is formless, but for the purpose of creation, maintenance, and destruction, the formless absolute truth accepts some form. Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. That's Mayavad doctrine. And Brahma is saying, no. The absolute truth, resting upon the statements of the earlier prayers, that form of Krishna is the absolute truth. The absolute truth being the source of everything. So he's the source of the Vishnu forms, who are the source of the creation. And all of those things, the universes that come from the Vishnu forms, also come from you, because you're the source of everything. And so now this is the controllers of the universe. The universe is controlled through the three modes. Maya, Jakshena, Prakriti. And there's the Adhyaksha, the superintending person of the creation, and that's Krishna. He's the maintainer. He gives direction to the modes of nature. He's not controlled by the modes of nature. He's not under the modes of nature. But by his supervision, the modes of nature are acting. And by the supervision of the modes of nature, the whole material universe is undergoing what it's undergoing. It's moving as Krishna moves it through the agency of his potencies. This is the relationship of Maya, or the potency of Krishna, in relation to things of this world and the things of the spiritual world. They're all moving under his direction, through his potencies, and they're real. Tomorrow morning, we're going to hear a little bit. I mean, it's a whole, a friend of mine, a sannyasi from Brazil, named Purushatraya Swami. He spent 3 years in Vrindavan, and he studied and gave a course, and then wrote a little booklet on the four sampradayas' teachings. What do they say? How do they compare? How are they different? And the similarity of the four sampradayas is the absolute truth as a person. And then there's differences in terms of how the source of everything relates with everything, or how does everything relate with the source of everything. And there's variations on, those ideologies. We're going to hear a little bit about it tomorrow morning. But he gave a whole course for a month, and we're only going to spend a few minutes tomorrow morning. I don't plan to give a 30-day course tomorrow morning's class. It's very subtle and detailed, in a very high level explanation, the the source of everything is the person, and that person has energies, and the relationship between that person and that person's energies, Supreme Person's energies, is where there's differences of the teaching. And there's consequences of those teachings. But they all profess bhakti. They all profess there's the Supreme Person that's the source. And different explanations of how the potencies relate. I'm saying it again. Our Bhagavatam is the same as Lord Chaitanya's teachings, and Lord Chaitanya's teachings is the same as the Bhagavatam, which we understand as being, there's a relationship of oneness and difference simultaneously. Are you familiar with that Achintya, Beda, Abeda, Tattva teaching, Mataji? Yes, no? No. Quickly. Madhvacharya in Udupi, he taught difference. You know, when you see pictures of Madhvacharya, he's holding up two fingers. And his doctrine was Beda. In fact, it was Pancha-Beda. Beda. There's distinctions between God and his energies. There's distinctions between the one energy and another energy. There's distinctions between the products of the material energy. How does it work? The living entities and God. Differences amongst the living entities. One entity is a distinctly different living entity than another living entity. And the distinction between living entities and material nature. His writings is all on that theme. Pancha Beda. So there's distinction. Over here, the followers of Ramanujacharya, they teach something different than Pancha Beda. They teach Vishishta, which means attributes. We'll touch on this tomorrow. Attributes that are inherent, they have a non-dual relationship with the source of those characteristics or attributes. So that it's, so like say, there's material nature. And inherent within Vishnu or Narayan is Prakriti. It's sometimes manifest, sometimes unmanifest. But whether unmanifest or manifest, the relationship is Advaita, Vishishta Advaita. There's a non-dual relationship between the energies and the source of energies, or everything and the source of everything. There's a non-dual Advaita relationship between everything and the source of everything. Vishishta Advaita. Madhva is Dvaita. Ramanuja, Vishishta Advaita. And Lord Chaitanya's teaching is neither of them alone is sufficient. There's simultaneously difference and oneness of all things with the source of emanation. That's what's in this verse. The forms of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva are not the source of everything. But because they're from so there's a difference. But because they're from the source of everything, there's a non-difference. They're real. Their functions are real. They're acting under the direction of the supreme real, supreme reality. They manifest the universe. They maintain the universe, and they withdraw the universe, or destroy everything that's created within the universe over a period of time. And it's not false. It's not non-existent. It's existent. We had a little discussion about that in the morning class, which is a continuation from a question Krunanidhi was asking on Friday morning about one of the Chatur Sloki, the first of the Chatur Sloki verses from the Bhagavatam. Did you catch that class? Hamevasam evagre. You know that verse? There's a verse. There are 4 verses in the whole of the Srimad Bhagavatam that are said to be the essential verses of the whole Bhagavatam. Chatur Shloki, it's called. And the first one says, in English, before creation, I alone exist. During the cosmic manifestation, I alone exist. And after cosmic annihilation, I alone exist. And that's emphasis on the oneness relationship. And there's a difference relationship because everything that exists isn't the source of everything that exists. Energy is not the source of all energies. The energetic is the source of all energies. So there's a oneness and difference relationship simultaneously with everything that exists and the source of everything, like sunlight and sun. They're inseparable. There's a oneness. But the sunlight is not the source of all light. It's emanating from the sun, which is the source. Similarly, all things have their relationship with the source. And so there's this doctrine, Madhva's doctrine, there's Ramanuja's doctrine, and there's Lord Chaitanya's doctrine or teaching, Vada, Achintya, Beda Bed, difference and non-difference of all things. So because Brahma's the creator of the universe and he saw what he saw, he's giving the philosophy behind what he saw. And essentially he's saying, all those things that I saw, they were real. And they're foolish people that don't think they're real. They think there's only one thing, and that only one thing is the non-differentiated Brahman. But what I saw is one thing that has all variety. Here's what I saw. And then he goes through what he saw. He saw Krishna. And then he saw Krishna with the cowherd boys and calves. But they were actually Krishna manifesting the spiritual form with his spiritual potency, looking like the cowherd boys that were all over there in the cave. But there was Krishna's spiritual energy. And then he saw all the forms of Vishnu or Narayan for each one of the calves and cowherd boys. Then he saw all their potencies personified, glorifying. And then he saw that same number of universes. That must have been an overwhelming experience. How do you see a universe? What to speak of so many universes all at once? It's overwhelming. And then Krishna withdrew them all and showed him his original form. And he uses this language, the all-pervading form of Krishna, although he's in a little 5-year-old boy's form. There's a oneness and difference, is the point. You saw that all of those things that were manifest had their oneness. There's variegatedness, so there's difference, but those varieties have they're resting upon a oneness aspect of Krishna. We'll discuss it a little bit further tomorrow. Again, this topic can take a month to really drill and make it very clear, and most people would rather go to kirtan or go Govardhan Parikrama or something. But it's the foundation of how we view Krishna and how we view the world around us. Oneness and difference. So, because there's been lots of discussion on the question side, I thought to make it short. It's 8 after the hour. Let's see if there's some discussion either in the room or online or whatever, or combination. Nothing in the room. Let's see if there's something online yet. Okay.
From Atmarama Prabhu, if I remember correctly, you mentioned in the last weekend that Ashwatthama will become the next Vyasadev in next Yuga cycle. But I was recently reading from Srimad Bhagavatam 8:13, 15 to 16 that 7 personalities, including Ashwatthama, will become one of the 7 sages in the 8th Manvantara. So is the same Ashwatthama going to be reborn once as Vyasadev, then later as 7 sages in the next Manvantara?
I don't know if he's going to be reborn. My understanding, because I've heard it multiple times, that Ashwatthama is a Chiran Jiva. He lives for a long time, and he's still Ashwatthama and becomes Vyasadeva. Now, this is the 28th Yuga cycle, and as you know, Atmarama, there's 71 Yuga cycles during Vaivasvata Manu, and if it's Manu number 8, it's probably not the same body, but the same person who becomes one of the 7 sages. So, whether A or B, whether Ashwatthama is a Chiranjiva and in the next cycle of the 4 yugas, he becomes Vyasadeva in the same personality or same form as Ashwatthama, or B, he expires and when he takes his birth during the next time Vyasa is required, it's the same soul, just, with a different form. I don't know if it's A or B. But what he's referring to in the 8th Manu, it's not going to be the same form. It's going to be another iteration of Ashwatthama. Okay?
Yes, Maharaj. So this question is from Antaranga Sheva Mataji. Can you please explain the relationship between Chaturshloki Bhagavatam and Chaturshloki Gita? Are they similar?
No. Simply. You understand the question? No. There are 4 verses in Bhagavad Gita that are the essential verses of Bhagavad Gita. There's 4 verses in the Bhagavatam that are essential verses of the Bhagavatam. Are they the same, or is there a correlation between them? And there's no correlation between them that I'm aware, other than they're the foundational verses of the whole text. So there must be some homily, some similarity, but not, this connect with that, and the other thing connect with the other thing, and I've not come across anything like that.
Shri Radhika Mataji has multiple questions.
Okay.
First question, Lord Shiva was referred to as Trinetra or three-eyed. Is it correct that the function of this eye is to aid by opening when it is time for destruction, and the rest of the time it stays closed?
I've not heard that. So it may be, it may not be, I don't know.
Second question from Shri Radhika Mataji. I have a question from this morning's class. The commentary quoted Lord Brahma as saying that the Brahman standing before him is superior to the Brahman found in the scriptures. Can you please explain this?
Well, the Brahman found in the scriptures means the generic understanding of Brahman that most people have. That is the impersonal Brahman feature. So the statement is that he sees that impersonal Brahman is inferior or an incomplete version of the personal feature, the para Brahman, the personal form of Krishna. Yeah.
From Yamuna Jivan Prabhu, the three different Vaishnava Sampradayas that were discussed have different understanding of Krishna's relationship with his energies. Ours, the practical application of one's bhakti modified by these understandings.
The modification, it's a very elaborate topic, and if you like, Jamuna Jivana, I can send you a PDF of Bhakti, Purushottam, not Purushottam. The devotee, I forgot his name already, Purushatraya Swami's PDF, his result of 3 years of research on this topic. I can send it to you. And so anything that I might say in response to your question would be not thorough and probably not so precise. But the nature of their bhakti, just in real simple, high-level terms, is they have a different, slightly different view of what the destination, or the conscious destination, their worshipable Supreme Lord in the mood of that worship is going to have some variety. And what that looks like, or how to articulate it, I'd have to go back, because I wouldn't want to just say something casual. I'd want to have a proper and studied response. How about this? I'll send you the PDF of Purushatraya Swami's work, and in either tomorrow evening or the next evening, or or next one of the classes, you can give us a little summary in response to what you've read from what he wrote, Purushatraya Swami's PDF. Okay.
Next question is from Udayananda Prabhu. During annihilation, what happens to the prarabdha karma of living entities? Does it preserve to their next lives?
Oh, yeah.
And continue to the next birth in the next creation?
Yes. It's time activates karma. Cosmic annihilation withdraws time. So karma doesn't go into nothingness. It just is suspended by time. Its time is withdrawn, so it's suspended. It goes to sleep. And when time is again injected into the creation, karma resumes, the prarabdha karma. Okay?
So next question is from Sundara Dhanakar Prabhu. We find that there are difference in the moods and ways how different spiritual masters preach Krishna consciousness.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes there are minor differences in the opinions of the spiritual masters. So, what does it mean to strictly follow Srila Prabhupada? Do we grasp the essence of his teachings but still have some freedom? How do we give space for our individuality while also be sure in pleasing the Guru?
Well, individuality is there, and individuality is going to be expressed individually. So the individual expression is to be expected. It's natural. It will be there. But the essence of Siddhanta is to not change. So that's the responsibility of a representative of disciplic succession, is to not modify, adjust, to transparently present the Siddhanta. And it's going to come out in different ways according to personalities and also according to realizations. The person asking this question, you can go a very nice answer to personal realizations. Read Brahma Samhita text 61, where it says, Yadrashi Yadrashi Shraddha Siddhi Bhavati Tadrashi. So it's the Yadrashi and Tadrashi is kind of like Yavat Tavat. It's making a comparison between one thing and another thing. Yadrashi Yadrashi Shraddha, according to the Shraddha, the faith of a particular acharya, Siddhi Bhavati, they'll have their realizations. That's how Bhakti Siddhanta translates, Siddhi Bhavati. Realizations awaken according to faith. It's perfectly normal, perfectly natural. Faith doesn't change Siddhanta, but faith expresses one's faith. And there may be this emphasis or that perspective or something.
Next question is from Sanchari Mataji. How do we understand that sometimes controversial actions of devotees, female and male, from our scriptures in a modern context? I am still having trouble understanding and explaining some of the actions of the pure devotees. For example, the circumstances around Vyasadeva or Karna's birth.
For modern people, there's modern sensibilities of right and wrong and culture and so forth. But from the transcendentalist perspective, specifically for Vyas, what was done was completely in keeping with the Vedic paradigm. Now, I could go through the details, but the simple answer is the Vedic paradigm was being followed. Now, the birth of Karna and the Pandavas, that's quite extraordinary. It's not ordinary. But the context is Durvasa Muni being pleased with Kunti and being capable of foreseeing the future, knowing that she would not be able to conceive children with her husband, gave her a means to conceive children that would become great heroes in Krishna's pastimes. So, how to explain Krishna's pastimes to ordinary people, the birth of the Pandavas, or conceiving child by mantra, and her virginity was not compromised. How do you have birth of a child where virginity is not compromised for a woman? So it's not ordinary. So the extraordinary was made, the arrangement for the extraordinary was made by persons who have higher powers, Durvasa Muni in this case, a mantra by which she could do such a thing, and the demigods who were called upon, who were fulfilling the purpose of Krishna's pastimes. Now, there's two things that are needed for a non-devotee somebody that you're trying to explain these things to. And that is the fundamental acceptance of unlimited potencies that are there within Krishna to do anything without constraint. So and the circumstances are extraordinary. They're not everyday circumstances. Children are not conceived of in that way. Ordinarily, it's extraordinary for the purpose of Krishna's pastimes. And so devotees do these things for the purpose of Krishna's pastimes.
The next question is from Amara Mataji. ISKCON follows Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, but we do not popularly hear about Panchabheda Tattva of Srila Madhvacharya, although this Sampradaya is established by him. Seeking some clarification, Maharaj.
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave a different doctrine or vada, although from the Madhva Sampradaya, initiated within the Madhva Sampradaya and taking teachings from the Madhva Sampradaya. But the uniqueness in his case is he's the personality of Godhead. And the doctrine of Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva is comprehensive, as was found in Srimad Bhagavatam, commentary on Vedanta Sutra by Vyas, and Baladev Vidyabhusan's commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam or Vedanta Sutra, per the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That's a long story of why Baladev had to do that. But Baladev received the Govinda Bhashya was compiled by Baladev Vidyabhusan. And he was initiated in Madhva's line. There was a Brahmana initiated in the line of Madhvacharya, who later became attracted to Lord Chaitanya and Lord Chaitanya's teachings many generations after Lord Chaitanya left, and he was called upon to write the Vedanta Sutra commentary that explains Lord Chaitanya's teachings per or in the context of Vedanta Sutra. So how do we understand these things? How do we explain it to people? It's that the line is, Lord Chaitanya's teachings are within the line of Madhvacharya, and the distinction between Panchabheda and Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva is understood because of the preeminence of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as the personality of Godhead, not just, an elevated sannyasi that took a left instead of going right. He has that credential and that authority, and that it's systematic, comprehensive, covering all of the Vedas. Next.
No more questions online, Maharaj.
Anything? Okay. You want to come over to the microphone?
This is specific to my father. And so the preamble of the question is, my father growing up was very grounded in the principle of when Brahmana takes, has a rate card, then his Brahminical power diminishes. And so one time he went to a Hare Krishna temple to book a function hall or something, and then they showed him a rate card. And from that day onwards, one thing that I know of that blocks him to embrace the principles of Prabhupada's teachings is he has a feeling that, hey, Hare Krishna is not a authorized teachings because they have rate cards.
What's a red card?
Rate card. So
Rate
card.
RATE.
RATE.
There's fees for renting the hall.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so because they have a fees for renting the hall, they can't be bona fide.
That's
his conviction.
That's his way of thinking. So my question is, how to, like, should the temples not then have a rate card, because how will the temple cover the cost? And then on the other end, if a person who has such an experience, then how to, like, what can help that person?
I don't know any kind of medical rule that says a temple cannot have fees for their facilities. I don't know where the scriptural foundation is. Maybe it's a custom, some parts of India or something like that. But I don't know of a scriptural basis, because if there was a scriptural basis, then Prabhupada wouldn't have done. It's, like for example, something that I am familiar with is the membership program, life membership program. And there was the purpose of the life membership program, as I understand it, Prabhupada wanted to give his books. But he knew that people would not value just having the gift of the book as much as if they contributed something to get the books. And so he created a life member program where they would get books, standing orders of books as they would come out. And there was a fee or a rate, using that term, connected, because the temples need to be maintained, and the people would value if there was some contribution, and the benefit was for them making the contribution to the temple. So this might, in other words, it's a yukta vairagya principle, to engage people in giving something to get spiritual benefit. It's not an entrepreneurial mindset. Now, it can easily become an entrepreneurial mindset, and that's a problem. And if one has from either the temple side or temple representative side, or the person on the receiving side, I'm giving this, I expect that.